Hi everyone, my name is Thomas Sanser, and this session is from the Scottish Summit 2020, and it was about the 3 ways to increase user adoption by using the Power Platform. Uh, and this will be a demonstration, fairly demo intensive. I'll be showing a lot of things visually and not that much of a PowerPoint. I guess we should still be calling out thank you to the sponsors that were there. Of course, if you can just pause this if you want to know more about them. So, more about me. So my name is Thomas Sanser, and I also go by the name of the CRM Keeper. I'll get back to that in a while, soon. Why that is my name. I just thought I'd just give you a brief, introduction to who I am and what my history is. So I started out with Dynamics 3.0 in 2007. I attended something called the Microsoft University that we had here in Norway. So it's the first ever Microsoft University held. And what they did was they wanted to train newly educated people into Microsoft technology. So Dynamics was one of them. AX would be another one with them. We also had things for SharePoint. We had them for, pretty much whatever technology was out there in 2007. But as you hear, I'm a CRM guy, so I was participating in the CRM track at that point. So what happened right after the university, I got hired into this company called Cartagena, a tiny company. I was hired as a salesperson. And quite an interesting journey. I thought that selling CRM would be how to put it, easy. It wasn't. It really, really wasn't. Selling CRM was tough, and I really got to learn that quickly. I pretty much failed at this job, but somehow, for some strange reason, I went out to this company called Crayon, also as a salesperson. After a while in Crayon, I was given the ultimatum to say that, okay, either we are going to fire you, or you can start off working as a consultant. And the reason why they said that is because I'd been making a lot of my own demos. I've been kind of a one-man show, trying to sell the system. But I always thought, like Dynamics was going to be a product, just, function feature sales. I never really thought of it as a platform because I didn't understand the concept at the time. So anyway, at that time I said, I didn't want to be without work. So I said, you know what, I'll try being a consultant. And since that day, I've never looked back, and I've loved it. Probably should have been a consultant all along. And the funny thing is that now that I'm a consultant, I sell more than I've ever done before. Anyway, so from Crayon, and this is where it's going to sound a little strange, it went over to Inmeta Consulting, which then turned into CRM Insight, which then turned into Seal. So from the looks of it, this can seem like I'm just whenever I feel like it, I just change jobs. But it's not actually the way it was. So this company kept on being bought up or changing names and stuff like that. So this is actually the same team throughout the whole process. So this is actually pretty much just one company, 4 different names. And then I was offered to work at Microsoft as a PTS within the Dynamics space, of course. So my job then was building up the Dynamics partners around and, talking to them about training, building the competency without, in the channel. Very, very interesting job, which led me to my current job at the company called Point Taken. So at Point Taken, I work as a Dynamics manager, building up a Dynamics team, and pretty much simple. My profile is a no-code approach. What I mean by that is that in theory, I can code. I have written a plugin. I probably shouldn't be doing it. I like to figure out approaches that are highly configurable. And it's not because I always believe it's better, because let's be honest, code is very important sometimes when you need the enterprise scale and stability. But I work on a lot of different projects where the configurability is actually quite important. And it makes us a little bit more limber and agile, I guess you could call it. So anyway, so that's my approach. I try to do everything in the sense that this stuff I talk about also, this is stuff you can do yourself, hopefully. And the reason for the name CRM Keeper is that in my spare time when I do not work, I am a goalie. So I'm not very professional at the moment, but I do play for the national beach soccer team. So that's, yeah, I guess that's something, which is quite fun. And so this is me, the Dynamics CRM Keeper. Yeah, I live in Oslo. I play a lot of soccer on my spare time. So if you want to follow that, you can go on the Instagram, Twitter. I will only be posting things about Dynamics. And of course, I will try to do things on the YouTube channel, which is hard. But yeah, just follow me on those channels if you want to. So let's get started. So the takeaways from this session today is number one, how Flow and Open APIs can make data live, how Power Apps can simplify the user inputs, how a data gateway can make data more relevant. So as you can see here, my focus in this talk is a lot about ensuring somewhat of a data quality, as at least as good as we can, because everyone knows that working with CRM and data is tough, and trying to keeping the quality within the data is also tough. So we're just going to picture ourselves in a situation here. I'm going to say picture this, the imaginable situation. You have been working your ass off all night long, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I mean, I'm literally working your ass off because you have just implemented the coolest solution you've ever done, and you've upgraded this customer from whatever solution to a dynamic CRM online, and your solution fucking rocks, right? And it is just the best implementation you've ever done. And you enter the customer's quarters Monday morning at 8 o'clock, and they are so impressed that you're standing there like Leonardo DiCaprio being slow clapped in, just fucking awesome, right? Well, let's be honest. It's never happened to me. Because if you look into the reality of the whole thing, software implementations are not anything like this. They are more like this, where of course you've probably seen this one before. You have the developer showing how it should be done, and you have the testers somewhat trying to figure out, yeah, it was probably like this, and then you have the end users, the people actually using the software, saying, well, yeah, right? So this is a reality. And this is something we got to think about every day when we do software. Change is not easy. It's not fun. And whatever you've done as a developer or a configurator or whatever, I mean, it's tough, because what you've done is you think this is so cool. And suddenly you're looking at the customer and he's like, but I don't really think this is good. But it's like, he's kind of running, but why don't you see that this is really awesome? Again, software. We got to figure out how to understand our clients the best way possible in order to help them so that the systems eventually, when they come to a certain level, have a good enough quality. So in Norway, we have this expression called trangfødsel, which means like it translates horribly. It's like a hard birth. And the whole point of the hard birth in this case is the fact that over time, I mean, things never turn out easy for the IT deployments, right? They would just be terrible in the beginning. Even though you've tried to have a good user adoption, most cases this will be a hard sell. But eventually they will probably see the glory of everything, but it will take a long time before they maybe see the glory. And this is now, back to data and things. Like Microsoft has always been up and around about, this infinite loop and cycle. So I guess you've probably seen this one before, and you've probably also seen this one, the digital feedback loop. We're always talking about how it's so easy, the data is just flowing back into the system. Everything is magical. And it's like, well, of course this works. How could it not work? It looks great. Yeah, it looks great. But I have a little challenge to the data flow here because I'm not really certain that I agree always. And it's like every delivery has its own life. So let's just look at that. So yeah, this would be kind of like you would see the infinite loop of things where you have the sales, you have the customer service, field service, marketing, maybe even customer insights, So you got a loop of information just running around. But in reality, in many, many, many cases, and I'm not saying all, but in a lot of cases, we often start off with sales. We want sales to succeed because it's been, this CRM system might have been sold as a sales solution. And at the same time, who are the worst people in the organization with data? The people you can't trust, the people that will do anything to get away with anything, it's sales. So we're basically sometimes relying on the worst users in order to actually create good data for the rest of our system, which it just doesn't make sense now, does it? But that's reality. So this is why I want to challenge to say that, maybe we should not think of it as necessarily the infinite loop, but data might actually be a little bit more linear, right? So if we were to look at data like this, saying that, in many cases, sales are the first ones producing data, then we got to think about, well, we really need to make it simple for them in order to make sense for the rest, right? Customer service, they're good at data. Marketing, they're good at data if the data is good, right? And field service, of course, I guess that's a kind of thing that they would need good data to do a good job, and hopefully we can even get them to value add whatever they have. You never know. So this is a possible data flow, and as you can see, as anything what you do expect, if you have shit in, you get shit out, right? So this is what my whole talk is really about, trying to see if these are 3 points that I found that made sense to me in order to sort of try to improve the data quality early. So I wanted to just say the key challenges, just to bring it down in a real life perspective. So this is point taken, my company right now, our key challenges. So the facts. So we came from HubSpot, which is extremely simple. It does exactly what you would expect. Opportunity management, right? We're not talking about the whole marketing solution. We're talking about opportunity management, right? So the thing is, the navigation is not easy. For some users, this navigation can be pursued as very tough. There's a lot of buttons, and let's be honest, it's an enterprise solution, and many people only use it as, just a little tiny part. Location. So we have 2 locations. We're in the capital of Norway, which is Oslo, and we have another city called Kristiansand, where we also have a department, but they do SharePoint. And again, that's a challenge, because I have 2 different locations. One is predominantly only SharePoint, and then in Oslo we have mostly SharePoint and some Dynamics. As you can see here. So that means that how do I reach out to a client base that, thinks as Dynamics or CDS or whatever we like to call it is the devil because it's not a SharePoint list, right? And then, of course, you have the personalities within sales. I have an old sales guy. I have a younger sales guy. And, I'm not going to say which one of them obviously is the least technical one. And also the fact that on the run, they find it fairly hard to use. And that's also, if you try the Dynamics app, it works. Functionally, if you just look at it as a technician, the app is great. It does everything. But if you actually look at it as a salesperson, you're like, dude, that's a lot of buttons. That's a lot of buttons. And you can't expect a salesperson to really understand how to navigate anything, when you just, from one meeting to the next meeting. It's too complicated. And so the first thing I'm going to take you guys through here today is step 1, connecting to Brønnøysundregisteret. So in Norway, we have this thing called BERIC, which is a publicly available database. So if you have an organization number, it's pretty much like Dun & Bradstreet, only it's just for the Norwegian numbers. We can connect to that using Flow, and I'll also talk about how we can wash the data. So this is step 1. So with that, I'm just going to jump right into the demo. For the demo now, and of course, what could possibly go wrong? Let's see here. So what we see here is the API. So there are a lot of APIs out there, and many of them are open. In this case, this is the API that I'm talking about. They have something saying that you can say that here we have the API saying if you add the organization number here and you enter this address into the web browser, the return of this will be a file looking like this. So this is a JSON file, and for a non-developer like me, that's like, I mean, I understand the basics of it, but first time I saw this, I was really confused because it's like, okay, I see that there's a file here, but how do I get the data? I mean, I'm looking for maybe the name. Okay, so the name is here. This is the point taken name based on this ID, but how do I get the rest of the information? Because all I see here is that when I enter this data, the response that I'm going to get here is the API, or this is a JSON file. So this is the API is responding with this information. So this is where the flow comes in, because I mean, again, I am not a developer, and without understanding code, was I actually being able now to suddenly integrate with an API? And to show this, I'm going to go into our sandbox solution environment here, and I will be entering a new account. So, from what you can see here, as we know, a flow is asynchronous, meaning that it will run in the background. So later versions, I've also created one with a different component. That means that it's more synchronous. But for this demo now, I'm just going to show you how you. But that was with the developer. But this is something you could do. So what I'm going to do now is when I enter here a name, it doesn't really matter what I write here because it's going to overwrite anyway. So if we do point taken, that's the name, and we're going to say that I am getting this ID. For account number. So what I'm saying here is that based on this, I want the flow to send out a bit of information, building up a URL saying I want this information back. And the flow is going to then work through that file and put data back into CRM. So I'm going to click save here, and we're going to see what happens. So as you know, this is asynchronous, so this is working now in the background. So eventually this will get refreshed. Let's just wait for that one to work. Anytime now. Here we go. See here, I got my address information back from the API because I entered this data. So this is data thing point number one. In Norway, we are lucky, and in point taken, we're also lucky because we only work with Norwegian customers. So I mean, this is something that I had to consider. So only Norwegian customers, I could guarantee that this number would always be entered. And I mean, in my production environment, we have forced this number, but this is their sandbox, so it's a little different here. So what it looks like here is this is the connection, and I will go through this one just in a little while, but now this is our flow that I'm going to focus on. So what we can see in our flow here is that if I go into the edit mode, when a record is created, and this is the accounts, the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to get the account number. And when this function here, I'm just saying basically take away all spaces because I don't need spaces in my account numbers. When I do the call, I need nothing with it, no spaces allowed, basically. So there's nothing more than that. And then I'm just checking to see if the length is 9 because all of the organization numbers in Norway are 9. So if it's more or less than 9, I'm not going to work with this. And here's where the magic comes in. So the first thing we're doing here is we're doing something called an HTTP GET. And I'm basically just building, you see this URL? I'm basically building it with the account number. It's the same URL I was showing you here. It's this one here, and I'm just adding on the dynamic number. And then whenever this thing, I don't have to do anything with authentication because this is an open API. Okay? So for everything that comes back successfully, it will say a status to 200. That means successful. So if this was successful, which it was, here's where the cool thing comes in. The file here that you were seeing, which is completely weird for me because I don't understand it. I just know that it's a JSON file. I am now, sorry about that, there's a function called parse JSON. And how it works is quite interesting because this here too, you would say, oh, but you need to understand programming probably to be able to make this file because this is the results I'm getting back. And the interesting part is, no, you don't, because I can generate this whole JSON file that we get back. I can generate it from a sample. So what I do here is that I look at the sample code that we have here, and I just copy this. Here, I copy the whole thing like that, and I paste it in here. And I'm not going to overwrite because I just need to use this, but I click done. So what if you can see here, it's got lots of like different numbers and it's got different values. It's just going to strip all of those and it's just going to post it over here. Say it's a type string, it's an object, and stuff like that instead. It does everything for you. So the result of this is that when I go to update the record at the end, whenever I want to enter a data value here, I'm just going to go into the facts here. All of these fields are from the parse JSON. I have the organization number, I have the name, I have description, country, country code, post number. I have everything. So I'm basically navigating here in variables through this. That's pretty cool, huh? Because without a single line of code, I am not coding, but I have now integrated with an API, which is, for me, a few years back, I would say no way. Right now, this is actually happening, and it's kind of cool. And just because of that, I'm increasing data quality. And you're thinking, okay, that's fine. It will help us a little bit, but just think of the following. If I go here to manage your flows, I'm just going to go back here into, I will go back here to this. Won't save this, and I'm just going to open my flows again. This bad boy right here, scheduled from blank. Create the same exact workflow, but instead of just saying that you're going to go on the trigger, I'm using this to wash data. I do a scheduled flow once every month because the data we're getting from this is a public record database. It's not really that updated. It only like one, so it's not that important. But it would be nice to know if companies are bankrupt or not, right? So once a month, I go through data. I just do this and I just get all of the accounts I want to work with, and I just update anything that would have a status with bankrupt. And just by that, I've actually started a washing of my data by using the same API, the free open API, just by using a flow. I just go in, try to figure out if there's anything new update, come back, update the accounts. Simple as that, right? That's pretty amazing. That's the power of flow right there. So that is one way to do integrations using flow, and the demo that I really wanted to demonstrate to you guys about connecting to a open API and washing data. So that's step one. So for the next one right here, so this one's going to be a little tough to actually show you guys. So in the live session, first of all, I would give you guys a prize for whoever is the winner here, but just bear with me on this one and you'll kind of see what I'm trying to get to. So what I call this, who's the app master? Because on your phone, if you have your phone here, if you're listening now and you have your phone, pick up your phone and open the app section and see how many apps you have. So what I go through is with the crowd, I ask them, how many apps you got? 20 or more, 30 or more, 50 or more, 80 or more, 100 or more. And at this point, people are starting to lower their hands because they don't have that many apps left. 150 more, fewer people, 200 and more. So at the Scottish Summit, I actually had a few guys actually still there. They were up at around 300 apps. It was insane. And the whole point here is just think of the following. Sorry about that. Just think about the following here, is that if you took all of these apps, now this is just a random selection of apps, and you crunch these into one application, what would happen? Make all of these apps one single app. It would be the worst user experience ever created to mankind. It would just be the worst. And still, that's kind of somehow what people, it's not really true. If we think about Dynamics CRM or any other enterprise scale application, it could probably be SAP, Oracle, or whatever. It's an enterprise application trying to do everything. And that's a problem for the users, because some users are not that advanced. Some users really do not want all of those buttons. They are just asking for a simple way, and we're back to the salespeople here. How easy can the system be done so that I can do my job? Because I really don't want to be in the system. I want to be out in the client meetings. I want to woo them with everything that we have. And this is the point where, where Power Apps comes in. Because what we're going to talk about now is, again, making a Power App and how it is then simpler for sales. And this is also the tricky part. Because it was a Power App, we're relating back to point taken, because it was a Power App, how it then suddenly was accepted by the SharePoint users. Because Power Apps isn't Dynamics. Power Apps is Power Apps, right? And in theory, Power Apps the canvas part almost came from SharePoint or whatever, right? And again, back to how the Power App can then simplify the user input. So this is the step 2. So again, jumping straight into demo mode here, all right? So what I'm going to introduce to you here is, if you can just find that correct one here. This is something that made a lot of sense internally in our organization, because I have one older sales guy. He does not like technology that is advanced. So Dynamics for him, just think about the following, okay? The reason why, I'm going to go back to our accounts. So we have point taken at this point. And the next step is, what if you want to do an opportunity, right? So you tell the salespeople, well, navigation can be complex, because in Dynamics we can do accounts. In theory, I can create an opportunity from here, right? I can go here into opportunities and I can do a new opportunity, which is fine, but the data quality isn't great, because I'm still missing the contact person. Do I really want them to create opportunities directly from an account? Maybe, maybe not. In my case, I don't. So then I would say, well, maybe I want it from the contact instead. So in this case, I'm just going to be quick here. I'm just going to create a new contact. Save and close there. Yes, I probably have a duplicate because this is our sandbox environment. And so we're going to go over and edit this contact. So I'm going to open the contact now and say, well, is this the place where I want to create an opportunity? And in my case, I would say for data quality purposes, I would say yes. Because if I create one from here, I already know the contact and I know the account, right? Which makes sense. But what if you're a salesperson? Where would you go? Well, if I were a salesperson, I'll go here. I'm going right to the opportunities. I'm creating a new opportunity. I'm clicking new. All right, I fill in the topic. And I'm going to accounts here. I'm going to look through here. Maybe I'm even going to do a search. If I don't find what I want quickly, I'm probably going to hit new account. Again, remember, in this case, I have an asynchronous flow, which doesn't really give us the live feedback right away. But I do, and I could have done here, of course, I could have put a duplicate detection rule on this, making sure that, if I enter this name, we would get a duplicate detection warning, and of course stuff like that. But let's say in theory you've forgotten all about this. You're not really using duplicate detection, or you haven't really been paying attention. I mean, you could be creating a duplicate account right now, right? So that's one partially one area where you could possibly make an error. And the same thing goes for if you go to the contact. Well, here I can just add a contact, but there's no guarantee that this contact is linked to the account, which in our case at Point Taken is a mandatory thing, because all contacts we are working with are employed with the accounts. We don't work in hybrid kind of things where you have a sponsor from a different company working in, etc., which are the contact people. In our way of working, the contact would always be connected to the account. But from right now, I could do this. I could do 24/7 Office, and I could do this guy. And they have nothing to do with each other, right? So this leads to poor data quality, right? Because in my book, I would say that, okay, if we drop this opportunity, I'm going to go back to the newly created Thomas Answer. And I would say that when I create an opportunity from here, I like it this way because this is free. This is already given. The account and contact are there, so I just write my new topic, etc., right? So what if I could tell you then that the main important thing for me to guarantee that my users are using this right is to try to limit their navigation. But how can that be done? I mean, the whole purpose of dynamic CRM is giving the users options, right? Well, under certain circumstances, you don't want them to give too many options. You want to limit the options and make sure that the data is good. So this is where I introduced, and rule number 1 within a Power App, just saying that, rule number 1, never comment on another person's Power App's visuals, because I am not a graphical designer. I hate doing anything visual in a Power App. If it works, all right? So, Point Taken's CRM. So this is what we're calling the Point Taken CRM Lite. It's a 3-button Power App. It's as simple as that. Does it cover absolutely everything in an opportunity? No, it doesn't. But here's the thing. It covers most things. When a salesperson, as I was saying, on the move, out there, even the old guy that we have on our team, just think about it. He has 3 buttons here. How simple is that navigation, right? And here's the other thing. If I open accounts, and I'm just going to start off with searching Point Taken. I can't find anything in the system. I'm just going to double check here because our registered name is sometimes with there. Oh, yeah, so we are in the system. But if I open Point Taken, as you can see here, I can see, oh, we have one contact person registered at Point Taken. Okay. But I don't have any opportunities. But you see here, notice here that I can't add an opportunity. There's nothing for me to add, because I don't want them to be able to add a new opportunity from the accounts. But I can add a new contact. But before I go over to this, I'm just going to show you guys a little thing, something before. So here's the interesting part. Do you remember the BREG, which I call the Brønnøysundregister? There are different ways to integrate many things. But in Flow, for some reason, they kind of support the, in Power Apps, you can actually connect to a Flow with a certain-ish way of synchronous feedback. So if you remember the first flow that we looked at, it was getting the data based on anything happening in the background. It will take a few seconds before it happens. So this thing is what they call an instant flow, which happens pretty much instantly, almost instantly. I'll show you. It does the exact same thing that we were asking about. Whenever I click a button in Power Apps, I'm going to fire off and say that get me the accounts with the current name that I'm searching for. And the response in this case is actually a response that is logged towards Power Apps. And I'll get back to how that actually works. So I'm not going to go into too many details here, but I'm doing the same thing with the flow. So when I click a button here, I am searching an API, and boom, getting it right back here. So I can also do this for a different customer in this. I could do, let's just check if we have, this is one of our sister companies. They're in, sorry about that. This one, all right, so we don't have this one in. So I'm going to search the API, open API out there to see, I want to add the company called Epinova, because this is who we are going to create an opportunity against. So the first thing I get up is Epinova OS. Cool. So I added a button here that just adds things to the CRM system. Once that is done, I have a visual up here saying that account added to CRM. Awesome. So if I now search for the CRM system, I find Epinova. And again here, I can open the accounts. And I can see this is the new account number. So far I'm controlling the user input, right? Because what I want to do about this, I want to make sure that, first of all, that we get this ID. That's the most important thing for me. Anything entered with this ID, meaning that I can always wash data. Everything is good for me on accounts. So the accounts, all right? I want to add an account. So that's going to be Thomas. And from here, again, don't comment about colors and visuals. This is just we have done this better in our production system, but it takes a little while. So just keep it as tidy as possible. So I'm going to do the submit item here. And again, a little different way of telling you. See here, this green visual, it's just for fun, but you kind of get the point is that when you're in a Power App, you can do whatever you want. If you want to have some happy faces or anything, successfully transfer data, stuff like that. There's so many things you can do. And, the feedback within Microsoft CRM is nothing. Not even when you close the opportunity, it's blank, zilch, nothing. So we added the contacts. So when I navigate now back to the accounts, Epinova, see here, we now have a contact. And still, as you can see, I cannot create an opportunity. And why is that? Well, because I want to stick to the behavioral data, saying that I want here, okay, I'm going into Thomas Answer. This is the contact. So of course I can go in here and change the data if I wanted to, if it changes phone number or whatever, and click save. But here is for the first time I actually introduced the new opportunity button. And the reason is because now I can guarantee you that the data is good, right? So this is quite interesting. So now I go into the new opportunity. Boom. This is where I can do it. So I'm just going to say number 1 now, just so it pops up on top of our list. So we're going to do demo opportunity. And we are saying that it's Thomas and Epinova, because these are variables that I have in here. And we're going to start off in the possibility phase. Estimated revenue is 100. And the closing date will be the 30th of June, which is now, I guess, yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. Or sorry, I'm not going to close it. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And I've got to remember the name, number 1, demo opportunity. All right. Again here, not very thing, but just saying that, yep, it was successful. Cool. So now I can go over to the list of my opportunities. So the list of my opportunities here, I should be able to see. I'm probably sorting this on something else than what I thought. So if I go here to 1, demo, yeah. So here's my opportunity. And in the opportunity, I can, of course, do the changes I need on the fly. So that would be maybe, oh, we're not in possibility anymore. We are in process. Cool. We just had a great meeting. Opportunity updated. All right, so this is just feedback we're doing, and this is very easy to do on your mobile telephone. Simple, simple, simple information, all the way keeping our data relevant all of the time. So if I go back to our main opportunity now, as you can see, I'm just giving visuals here, because if you think about the Dynamics application, when you open it up, what is, I'm just going to discard these changes. What's a relevant startup screen? I mean, is this dashboard even relevant? Does it look nice? No, it doesn't look nice at all. But if you think about it, for a salesperson, maybe this is just something simple we can do. How many opportunities do you have open right now? All right, the average deal size, this is just examples. Or I can even connect it to a Power BI tile based on the types of products we're selling, what's in pipeline. And back to this, it's a navigational item here of 3 things. If you want the contacts in the database, go to contacts. I should probably appear a few times here. There. Or if you want to search for the opportunities, you go into the opportunities and you can search or you can scroll, right? And you can go in and do any opportunity update based on what you need to do. Simple. So the idea here is just to show you that the Power Apps is really just not, I mean, many people think a lot about, the Power Apps are so cool for this reason or that reason, basically because you're creating something visual. But the main point for me was, in this case, to create a Power App that made sense for the user input. I could actually control the user input here. If I forced them to use this application, I knew that for anything opening up, I have the data, I have the account the way I want it, I have the contacts, at least with minimal or good enough information. And from there, we can create the opportunity. Instead of having these, situations where the salespeople find, the worst excuses for why things are not up to date, right? So that is the power of a Power App, if that's even allowed to say. And with a 3-button Power App, this is what we were able to do. So moving on. The next step here, the step 3, the last step, is connecting to an ERP system for relevant information. So what I'm going to what I'm going to show you guys now is the gateway, or data gateway, and how we can actually connect to an on-premise system. And try to just paint a picture here. Again, I am not a developer, and what we are doing now is that, look at this picture here. What we have here on top is the cloud. This is Office 365, Dynamics 365. This is the cloud. And on-premise data source. I am now in my home office in Norway, and at the physical office, I have a server, which we do all of our timesheets and our customers, all our billing. Everything is on an ERP system, physically on the ground, on-premise. And I'm actually going to show you guys in a few minutes how we can integrate that system with Dynamics 365 without writing a single line of code, which is insane. I mean, this is just insane. Not a single line of code, and I'm going to be integrating CRM with an ERP system on-premise, right? So back again to the demo. Again, at this point, what could possibly go wrong? Well, a lot of things, because this is something that normally gets a few quirks and bugs. So look at this. We are going to navigate to a new part of something called make.powerapps.com. So this is where you basically go to either create a new Power App. You go maybe in the future. I'm still working with the classic editor, but in the future, of course, everything's being pushed over here. We will manage our solutions, configurations, everything. But one thing you have here under data is something called data flows. So this little bad boy here is what we're going to be talking about. So first of all, before we even get there, I've installed an application on the server called an on-premise data gateway. It was usually, in the beginning, it was like a typical way to get data from the servers on-premise up to Power BI. But this also works for Power Apps. The connectors are the same. And what it really does is so that when I enter the server address down on-premise, I'm actually getting a response. So what we're going to do here now is we're going to do in data flows, I'm going to create a new data flow. And I will be connecting to our on-premise data server. So here we're going to call this accounts connection. Create. And so the thing is that you're going to see here, and hopefully over time they will be adding lots of more connectors here. But this is a SQL database. Here we go. It's just needed time to load. And this is a SQL Server database that I'm connected to, normal Microsoft Dynamics SQL Server database. And this is where it's interesting, right? So for the server name here, I'm actually going to use the local IP address. And if you don't know what an IP address is, it's basically the name of a server, and it is like this. So it's 10. And the database we're going to be connecting to is so. In theory, this should work. So let's see what happens. And this again is not. This is not publicly available for anyone except when you're, only for the people on my or in my environment here. They're the only people that can actually access this because we have access through a on-premise data gateway installed for this environment. And of course, the only problem is that if this server somehow was put in a boot sequence now because of Windows update or something like that, I guess. Normally this would be installed on a server. For the demo purposes, I've installed this on a local laptop running at the office right now. So, all right, it's actually responding. Great. So accounts in this system is called debitor. So I'm just going to say that this is the table that I want. So this is just a normal table. This would be the account table, except that this is called debitor in this system. So as you can see here, this is actually picking up on our customer database. So the next thing I'm going to do here is transform data. So as you can see here, the first issue that I would think about is saying that these are spaces. And in my system, I don't allow spaces. I don't want spaces. So the typical thing we would do in the beginning here is to say, well, first of all, let's just remove a few from the top here. And we will do remove top rows, some number of rows we're going to keep. Let's just keep 10, all right? So that's keep rows. Here, you can use just like Power BI, you can just navigate one step back like that. I am going to keep rows, keep top rows, not remove top rows. I'm going to keep top 10. There we go. Makes more sense. So, okay, so we have the top 10 rows, and I need to do something here. So in this case, I'm actually going to have to replace values. It's going to sound a little strange because I'm actually going to replace a blank, so I'm just doing a space here. And then for this to actually make sure that I get the nothing, I'm going to say space and then go back. Okay. And here you can see that it has changed it to nothing. So we have no more spaces here. So this is all the data management I'm going to do now because I'm basically just connecting the name and the number. So we have this name called Phototalks, which is the account number, and name. That's all I'm really doing. And of course, this is the local ID, but I'm going to use this as a unique ID because our financial systems are also using these numbers. So one thing I haven't told you now is that behind the scenes, we're doing something with alternate keys. I have written a lot about that in my blog. So if you want to learn more about that, we can go back to, you can just go look at my blog. But if you look here at the debitor, I am going to load this to an existing entity, and I will be choosing accounts. So here, this thing is going to show the account number. It's already chosen that. So this is the key field, it's something I need to do. So this is the integration point, which I'm told this is the number that we have here. That's basically what I'm choosing as my alternate key field. Here we are. So you got to go down to, it is our account number up here. We find the database here, the Företagsnummer, and we're going to go with name. against name. Oops, there we go. No. Again, very simple. I'm basically just mapping names in and matching it against the account number. Next. And this again here, why is this exciting? Well, this is actually a live integration, and you can set it up to run as often as you want or as seldom as you want. You can even do manual. You can do this as, see here until it gets its thing. Here we go. So I can do a manual refresh, and that would be just now doing create, and it will go in. Or I can do something says refresh automatically. And then I can do, see here, every minute. It doesn't really make sense, but maybe a few times every hour, maybe once a day, stuff like that. So this is a batch integration, one-way integration into Dynamics. And it is super fast. I've also written about the speed about this on my blog, so you can go there and read more about the speed. I have everything in more details. For now, we're just going to do a manual refresh. We will do a create. And while we are waiting for that, I'm just going to show you, we are going to just open the advanced find to show which accounts are going to be created. All right. So as you can see here, it created at least Ocean Maxwell in this case, and it did the last refresh here. So the reason why I didn't necessarily have created on, let's say modified on. I'm not even sure that they were modified the other accounts, to be quite honest. Because if it doesn't see an update, yeah, so it's these 10. So I should have done this query instead. So these are actually the 10 accounts that we had in our top 10 list. These are the ones that have been modified. So right now these are in sync. If I do this thing here and I go and I say edit refresh settings, we're going to do this automatically. I can do this every day, making sure that my accounts are up to date with our ERP system every day. And this is not a single line of code. And I basically integrated, I don't know, it took me 10 or 15 minutes here. I've integrated with our ERP system on premise. I mean, as a functional consultant, that is freaking amazing. I mean, honestly, there's no way I was capable of doing this before the Power Platform. No way at all. So, that being said, actually, even though the demo was quite slow at this point, it worked. So, just to close off, what you've seen today is 3 different ways of doing. What you've seen today is 3 different ways of improving user adoption and data quality by giving users better data, hoping that they will understand the purpose of the system more and trust the system. I mean, that's all it really is for salespeople. Do they trust the data that is there, and can they use it for something? So yeah, thank you so much for listening, or even in this case, watching. If you want to contact me, this is my information. I do write a lot on my blog. I've posted a lot of blog posts about the data migration, the data flow. I will also be posting more about the flow for integrating against pretty soon. Yeah, so thank you.